Hey guys, it's EJArendee. I'm going to talk about ISTP misconceptions. The first misconception that I want to go over would be the mechanics. ISTPs are often viewed as the mechanics. They fix things, troubleshooters, etc. Now, let's compare them to ESTPs for a second here. ESTPs are all about experiencing the world. They just want to get out, do things, see what life has to offer. ISTPs they're not that way because their primary function is not extroverted sensing, so they're not constantly seeking that external stimulus. Okay, they will take in information and then they will sit there and they will process it with their introverted thinking. Now, when you have somebody who does this, it means anytime they take in, they're constantly processing this information, constantly processing. So anytime they take in new information, they will process it and synthesize it until they understand it. And with this being said, they will, if they happen to stumble upon how a car works, they'll sit there and they'll think about it, and then they will start to understand it. And because it's food for thought is what it is. It's more food for thought. It fuels their thinking, gives them something to think about. So that's sort of why they can be viewed as the mechanics, is because there's a high likelihood that they will have at some point stumbled across how a car works and have thought about it. Now, that doesn't mean they just inherently, like, they come out of the womb and they're like, okay, I need to learn about cars and I need to ride a motorcycle. No, it just means that they like to process this kind of information. So the same thing can apply. You can have ISTP gardeners who know everything about gardening. You can have ISTP marine biologists who know everything about whales and manatees and stuff like that. So you can't just say it's just when they have an area of interest, they will typically delve very deep into it and process everything that it has to offer. So for this reason, they can have a very in-depth knowledge of whatever it is they are thinking about or interested in. So they're not automatically mechanics. It's just they have a mechanical mind. They can think up something on the fly. Good troubleshooters. So, for example, if you're driving on the road, your car stops moving, you sit there and you think, what are all the possible reasons this car could have stopped moving? And so you can say, did I run out of gas? Look at the gas thing. Nope. Did something break in the engine? Well, I didn't hear or feel anything snap as I was driving. I didn't hear any noises that would indicate that something broke. So that can't be it. Is it something electrical? And then you can pull over the car, and then go check the fuse box, and you're like, oh, okay. You go to the fuse box and you open it up, and you're like, let's see, let's look through all the fuses. Oh, that one's broken. What is that? And you look at it, and it says alternator or something. And you'd be like, oh, well, the alternator fuse is broken. So, and then you replace the fuse, and then boom, you're done, and then you're good. Or you don't replace it. You realize there's some sort of electrical issue with the alternator, and you have to fix it. So that's how troubleshooting works. Is you think of all the possibilities and how it works, and then you can step through it one by one. It's sort of a deductive process. Now, what was the other misconception with ISTPs? They have no feelings. Get this into your head. Everybody watching this video, get this into your head. If a personality does not emote, does not show emotion, that does not mean they have no emotions. Okay, get that into your head. There's no more frustrating stereotype that comes to me than somebody than when people say, oh, that type doesn't have emotions. Bullshit. Any type that does not have emotions is going to probably be a legitimate sociopath or suffer from some sort of mental illness. Okay. Now, many personalities can forget or be unaware of their emotions. Okay, but they do feel things, and oftentimes we might tune those feelings out, or push them to the side, but they're still there and we cannot escape them. And this is actually a problem for many thinker personalities, is that they cannot escape their emotions. Okay, so what happens is an ISTP can get so frustrated over something that they can cry in public. And the reason for this is because ISTPs have a difficult time handling their emotions. You can't. An ISTP is not the best at bottling up their emotions, because, well, typically what happens is an ISTP is not even going to be aware that they're bottling up their emotions. They just will be inherently bottling them up, and then one day, and shit hits the fan. Maybe they get really violent, pissed off, start throwing things. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, cry in public, something like that. Something might happen where the bottle is finally opened and the pressure is released. So ISTPs are not really aware of their emotions. Now sometimes they can be extremely aware. The inferior function, the fourth function of every personality, is very primitive. It's pretty much all or nothing. It's like the only thing you can think about, or you don't think about it at all. Okay, so this is why INFJs and INTJs can become extremely nitpicky, is because they get extremely nitpicky with all the details. You're thinking too much about the details sometimes. While ISTPs can sometimes become extremely emotional or not emotional at all. And what this is called is hyper-emotionalism. To finish my analogy, ESTPs, on the other hand, with introvert intuition, I can sometimes be completely obsessed with my goals in the future, or have none at all, or I want nothing to do with them. I don't want to wear a watch. I don't want to go to work at a certain time. I want to go to bed whenever I want to. That sort of thing. So ISTPs can have what's called hyper-emotionalism, which is where they feel intense emotions to the point that they're too strong for them to handle. They can get a little bamboozled, a little bit frustrated. They might have to actually leave the room to let their head clear up. Okay, so this is an issue with ISTPs. They are thinkers primarily, so they want to be thinking all the time. They want to be in control of their emotions. They want to take a rational approach to everything in life. So that's the issue with that. A lot of ISTPs will actually think that they are INFJs or even ISFPs because of this hyper emotionalism, because they will experience these powerful emotions sometimes and not know what to do with them. And they'll be like, oh, I must be a feeler because I feel these things all the time, or whatever the case may be, whatever the reason is. So that's something to take into account. What's the next misconception I want to go over? Action-oriented doers. Motorcycles. Okay, motorcycles and stuff like that. Motorcycles and skydiving and adrenaline sports. This is primarily an ESTP thing, but ISTPs do it as well. It really is just an extroverted sensing thing, and the reason for that is because motorcycles, you can feel the wind. There's no glass holding you in. You don't feel like you're driving inside of a box. You don't feel like you're driving inside of a cage. It doesn't feel like you're driving a metal cage down the road. It feels like you're free. It feels like you're open space, all the wind, At any moment you can jump off the motorcycle and no longer be on the motorcycle if you wanted to do that. Okay, so that is an extroverted sensing trait. So you're going to find a lot of ESFPs, ESTPs, ISFPs, ISTPs probably enjoy motorcycles to some extent. They at least appreciate the idea. I'm an ESTP. I'm smart enough to know that motorcycles are incredibly dangerous, and there are a lot of risks involved. So that doesn't mean I'm going to go drive one. I'm going to own one eventually, but there are some people out there who are not willing to deal with those kinds of risks. There are plenty of ISTPs out there and ESTPs who are not willing to deal with those kinds of risks. I know several ESTPs who don't want to skydive because it's stupid. You have no control. You have no control over your death. It's just like, oh, my parachute doesn't work. Well, goodbye, cruel world. You know. So there's that's really part of it. The motorcycle, it's just, that is why they like motorcycles and stuff like that, is because of the openness and the free. So this can apply to many other things, okay? Not just motorcycles, but the same sort of attitude, this feeling of freedom and liberation. They can be attracted to anything else that has this sort of mentality. So hang gliders, or maybe their dream home has no walls. Maybe, you know, whatever. Maybe they're nature freaks. What else? You know, just because you own a motorcycle does not make you an ISTP. So that's not something. Let's see, Clint Eastwood. Here we go. This is another one. I know a lot. I was an ISTP for a time, and a lot of them like to. We like the fact that Clint Eastwood is an ISTP because Clint Eastwood is awesome. He's a Banff, and he's awesome. Clint Eastwood, he's a cool guy, but the thing is, we don't think, we look. A lot of times we would look up to Clint Eastwood. We would never, and other similar characters, possibly Bruce Lee and stuff like that. We look up to these characters, but we would never say, and we would be proud that these people were notable ISTPs, but we never viewed ourselves with pride because they were. It was never like, it's like, oh well, he's awesome, therefore I am awesome as well. That's never really how it was. It was more of a just a role model kind of thing. So, Clint Eastwood is kind of a badass, and he talks, and he's always in control of the situation, stuff like that. But ISTPs do not. This is not sort of a mentality that they have initially. This is the whole hardcore kind of he goes out there and he's got his gun, and he kind of reads everybody's mannerisms, and he kind of understands everything that's going on at all times. This is not something that ISTPs are typically aware of. Neither are ESTPs. ESTPs do see a lot of things like that, but still, these traits take time to develop. So if you're not this kind of badass dude who's hardcore with this like scary looking face, if that's not you, then that doesn't mean you're not an ISTP. All that kind of stuff, all that. When somebody becomes hard, it is sort of a learned. It means they've experienced a lot. They've experienced a lot in life, and they've become hardened by experience, I guess you could say. And so they start to develop these coping mechanisms and different outlooks on life, and eventually this becomes more readily apparent. So this is why ISTPs can look. This is why Clint Eastwood can look really hard, I guess you could say. Me, for example, I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but I can see myself becoming more and more. As I get experience, I can see myself becoming more and more, I guess, cynical onto human nature and stuff like that, unless I take control of my life and make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, so that's something to think about. Masters of tools. ISTPs can be pretty clumsy. just as any other type. I mean, with me, I'm an ESTP, and I bump into things. You know, I'll be trying to walk through a door, and then I'll just, you know, like, and my shoulder will hit the door. You know, we're not always locked on 24/7. I still bump into things as an ESTP. I mean, I walk through my room. I walk through my messy room like a cat. You know, I never really step in it. I never step on anything. I place my feet very carefully, walk on my tiptoes and stuff like that. When I'm tiptoeing through all my clothes that are scattered all about the ground. But ISTPs are not like we're not like, or TISE users, we're not like super aware of everything at all times. We can still be pretty much take things for granted, have a selective hearing. We can sort of tune things out. In fact, I would say that actually happens with time. Is that we can actually tune things out regularly, because you know we've seen it all. And when you see something routinely, your brain sort of tunes it out as unimportant. And so after a while, a lot of the world becomes pretty boring and unimportant. So there are a lot of things that extroverted sensors will not actually be paying attention to as they go about their lives. So those are just some things I'd like to clear up. Hope that explains some things. I'll see you later.